All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Have you ever felt like you're doing absolutely all the right self-improvement work? The endless meditations, the daily intentions, the journaling, but somehow you are literally just stuck in the exact same life patterns? Yeah, it's beyond frustrating. Well, today we are unpacking a really fascinating concept from Tahiti Reid's Soul Skool documentation, and it's called the quantum hold. We're going to break down the actual mechanics of why that stuck feeling happens and look at the exact somatic solution the source material brings to the table.
So we really have to start with one fundamental question. Why can't you stay? The material lays out this deeply relatable scenario. You visit your highest self all the time, right? That version of you who is totally at peace, completely aligned, and just out there living your purpose. You do the inner work and you feel this massive, undeniable shift. But then, inevitably, you wake up the next day or maybe a few days later, and you're right back in that old frequency. You're dealing with the exact same doubts. This frustrating loop, it's what's called frequency regression. Maybe you get a good 3 days out of it, maybe even a week if you're lucky, but eventually, boom, you snap right back.
And the core issue here basically boils down to a huge contrast between accessing your highest self and actually anchoring it. You've probably been taught dozens of ways to temporarily access a high frequency. Like, that part isn't really a mystery anymore. But according to the documentation, accessing it, that is only half the battle. The real problem is that nobody has shown you the actual mechanism to anchor it down. The source argues that this massive gap between just briefly visiting a state and permanently locking it in is exactly why personal change so often feels like this temporary illusion instead of your permanent reality. Now, that specific missing gap creates what they call the 99% cycle. And this missing link is precisely what keeps 99% of people just endlessly cycling through the exact same doubts, the same fears, and the same self-sabotaging patterns for literally their entire lives. I mean, you might wake up after this massive breakthrough feeling completely amazing, only to realize a short time later that absolutely nothing stuck. Honestly, it is such a huge relief to realize that this is not a lack of effort or willpower on your part. The documentation actually suggests it's simply a lack of a structural bodily hold. I think the crux of the whole problem is summed up perfectly by this one quote from the source. But the minute stress hits, your body never got the memo. Think about the typical tools we all use, right? Manifestation affirmations, vision boards, intensive journaling. The material points out that while trying to essentially think your way into change works for a fleeting moment, you regress the absolute second life pushes back. And why is that? Because those cognitive methods just do not anchor into your cells. Your conscious mind is totally on board with that new vision board, but the minute you get a stressful email from your boss, your nervous system panics and runs right back to its old survival programming. Which actually brings us to a pretty surprising number, 90. What if there was a way to just completely bypass that endless cognitive struggle? The material proposes that you can literally lock that elevated frequency right into your nervous system for real. And get this, it only takes 90 seconds. It's a massive paradigm shift. We're talking about moving away from years of gradual, exhausting mental gymnastics to a rapid, body-based anchor. The source even shares testimonials from people who claim they've experienced this profound, undeniable shift from deep doubt to absolute certainty in just a minute and a half. So let's actually look at the mechanism that makes this 90-second shift possible, the quantum hold itself. Basically, it acts as a bridging mechanism. It takes that high frequency you just activated, that amazing feeling of deep clarity and peace, and it actively holds it in the body long enough for your nervous system to finally register it as real. It is the missing somatic link that effectively tells your body, hey, this new peaceful frequency, yeah, this is our permanent reality now, and we're staying right here. At a 30,000-foot view, this breaks down into a remarkably simple 3-step process. First up, you activate the frequency. You just tap into that clarity you already know how to find. Step 2, you apply the quantum hold, which, as we said, acts as that crucial bridging mechanism. And finally, step 3, your nervous system actually anchors it. So instead of just taking a quick weekend vacation to your highest self, you're using this mechanism to basically pack your bags and make that frequency your permanent home. Now, a core philosophy driving this entire mechanism is this absolutely crucial idea. Your highest self exists right now. Not tomorrow, not next year when you've read enough self-help books or fixed enough things about yourself. She, or he, exists right now in this exact moment, and it's vital to grasp this perspective to really understand how the mechanism works. The only thing missing right now isn't more fixing. It's simply your nervous system catching up and locking into that current reality.
Okay, so you might be wondering, where is all this actually coming from? This really profound revelation comes from Tahiti Reid. She is a Hawaiian-born seer, medium, and channel. And according to the source material, this quantum hold mechanism was actually channeled directly from her star guides. But here's what's cool. Her focus isn't just floating out there in the mystical. For the last 20 years, she has literally taken this channeled esoteric wisdom and translated into highly practical somatic mechanisms that actually work in the physical body. Her whole goal is taking what's normally just spiritual theory and turning it into something your biology can actually use. And the quantum hold actually serves as the core mechanism inside a much broader ecosystem called Soul Skool. It's this comprehensive environment that features monthly channeling sessions with Tahiti, there's a state of genius quiz, something called the Speaking Abundance Method, and a dedicated quantum hold app library. The whole thing is strategically designed around giving you the exact practical tools to completely shift your reality and, most importantly, permanently hold that new frequency. What really makes this approach stand out in the whole self-development space is a very specific contrast, starting with belief versus starting with experience. Unlike so many other platforms out there that basically ask you to blindly believe in their process long before you ever see results, Soul Skool completely flips the model. They ask you to start entirely with experience. They want you to actually feel the quantum hold mechanism working in your own nervous system first before you're ever asked to believe in a single word of it.
And to actually facilitate that experience-first model, they offer a 7-day experience, because feeling your nervous system suddenly lock into your highest timeline is described in the source as this completely undeniable sensation. The program, which is normally structured at $97 a month, starts with a free 7-day trial. You get full access to the app, the library, the methods, the whole shebang. The entire strategy here is simply that you prove the concept somatically to your own body within those first few days without having to make any initial commitment.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The source material leaves us with a truly powerful question to chew on. Are you ready to stop visiting your purpose and start actually living it? Since you now know the secret to ending frequency regression, that missing gap between accessing a state and physically anchoring it, the only question left is whether you are finally ready to let your body get the memo. Thanks so much for exploring this with me, and definitely keep questioning how you anchor your own reality.